Alright, good evening. Okay, I think we'll get this live started here. Thanks everyone for joining. If you are new here, this is Offgrid Van Life, where we look at van conversions, Offgrid Power, building out batteries, lithium iron phosphate batteries, all that sort of stuff. We did a live last week or the week before, and we built out this battery behind me here, which is a drop-in replacement battery in a nice plastic case. So we're pretty chuffed with how that turned out and how it looks. And so we are looking at a new one this week where we are going to build out this guy. So this is a custom box that one of our suppliers in China actually made for us to order. So we said to them we're interested in building out some batteries and doing some testing and stuff. Can you make one of these boxes? So they made this for us. It's a metal case. It's very solid. So we're going to build out the battery on this live here and talk you guys through it as we do it. We've just come back from a great trip around the west coast of Ireland. Saw some pretty cool stuff, cool places. It's very beautiful. If you can ever get to that part of the world, it's well worth visiting. We saw some beautiful, beautiful places. So yeah, you'll be seeing lots of content from there. We've got a vlog that we're going to put out onto YouTube, just some detail of where we went to and what we got up to and stuff like that. If you're interested in that, then you'll have to jump onto YouTube and check that out. But yeah, let's get cracking and get this battery built. So the big difference between the one that we built last or a couple of weeks ago and this one is that this case has a little bit more space where we can actually clamp the cells using plywood and thread bar. So with the battery we built a couple of weeks ago, the case literally just fits the 280 amp hour cells, and so it's very compact and there's no space to really clamp those cells. But we did put plywood on either end and taped it using this fiber tape here, which has virtually no give. It's a very solid tape, and it basically just stops the cells from expanding too much. So when the cells charge, when you buy the cells new, generally they'll have about probably roughly 30% state of charge. So they'll be around 3.3 volts or thereabouts. And as you charge them up to their maximum state of charge of 3.65 volts, sometimes the cells will expand ever so slightly, and it's not necessarily a big problem because it's literally just 1 or 2 millimeters, but it's enough to cause tension on the solid bus bars, and you can cause damage to the battery cells. So it's well worth clamping them just to get extra life out of them, because what happens is as they charge and discharge and they move and you've got that solid bus bar across the terminals, it puts some stress and strain onto the components inside the cells, and the stuff inside the cells delaminates, and that's where you have problems that come up with those batteries, and it just reduces their lifespan. So we're going to build this battery out and I'll talk you through as we're doing it. We'll start out with the cells. We'll position them in the way that we want them to be. So the lid on the case, if I just move this here, that's the configuration of the lid. So positive and negative terminal. Our BMS is going to be like that inside the case. So we're going to want the BMS to be positioned so that this B minus going to the battery can just bend over like that and then go into that terminal there. And then we want this cable here to be able to bolt onto the terminal on the lid, and then obviously the rest of the terminals will connect in series to create a 12-volt battery. If we
just make sure we get this right. So you need to put the negative from the BMS onto here. So we probably need to have negative on this one here.
So they cross over, you mean? Because this is the B minus and then...
Yeah, that's the P minus, so it goes here, yeah. Okay, that's right, yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Alrighty.
So we're going to get to clamping these. So we've prepped some of the stuff just to save a bit of time, so this live isn't too long. But this is basically how we build out the custom batteries that we've been making using plywood, but just in this case we're going to be then putting the battery into the case once we have built it out. So So one of the things that we're going to be doing here is to take this tubing and putting it on the thread bar, just in case the cells do happen to move slightly, and to protect them.
On that side, and we can get the length of the tubing right.
So we're using these little, what are they called? Connector nuts. So they have a little hex insert in there that you put an Allen key into, and then on the other end is the thread where the thread bar goes in, and it's probably about almost an inch. It's about probably 2 centimeters in length, so the length that you have the thread there, and it's pretty handy for this because then you have a really flush finish. It's very neat.
Okay, do you want to cut the first tube to length while I hold these?
Yeah. Some scissors. So I'm just going to eyeball this. It's going to be roughly there. Okay. And we're going to get the thread bar into here. It's a very snug fit. Start off on this side here. And just thread that in. And same on that side.
Okay, once it's in,
that's that side. And then we'll just do the same for the others.
I'll let it spin into here and then you can take up the slack there. Okay, let me take a bit of it.
Well, actually, I was just going to push it in to get the length for this one, but we can do it like this. Okay. That one was a bit shorter, but I think that's actually spinning in there. And when you're tightening these, the idea is not that you tighten it so much that you are deforming the cells or anything like that. It's literally just a case of tightening them to the point where they hold the cells together. So the way that I would usually test it is if you go to actually lift the battery, so all of the cells from the plywood, if it just lifts them without the cells sliding out the bottom, that's about how tight you want it, and no more than that. If you so you don't want to be seeing your plywood bending around the cells or anything like that, because that's definitely getting too tight and you'll end up deforming your cells and causing problems. Okay. Grab another Allen key here somewhere.
So we just need to position this nice and straight. We've actually made these wide enough to fit into the case without them being able to move much. Normally we'd make these a bit narrower and run these thread bars closer to the cells. That's about it. Let's check this one. Yeah.
Okay, cells are nice and straight in this clamp here. And again, this is just plywood. It's just basic 9mm plywood, or what's that, 1/4 inch, or not quite. And we've just cut it to size and then spray painted it just with arbitrary, whatever the cheapest spray paint is that we can get from a hardware store. So when you go to lift that up there, yeah, the cells are no longer sliding out the bottom of the plywood, which is what we want. And with this tubing on the thread bar, if the cells did happen to move in there, then we know that they're not going to actually damage the battery cells. So the next thing we're going to do is to mount the BMS here. So we're going to need to mount it in a way that we can get the negative line on here and still get it down enough, and that it's not too high that the balance lead sticking out the top will hit the case.
Let's see that. Yeah, that'll work.
The only thing is that we just need to check that this is going to hit the positive terminal here.
So we may need to cut the corner of it away to allow the lead to come in from the side.
Yeah. Or drill a hole through there.
Yeah. And drill a hole and run this through the hole, and then it can come around inside.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
18mm. Okay, this is obviously where you be very careful not to hit the cells. Right there. It's going to give it.
You need to just see it when it's a bit too close.
Yeah.
Right there, yeah. Yeah, that'll work.
Okay, we've got some very small screws here that we're going to use to mount the BMS.
straight, can you see?
No, that goes down, yeah. Just hold that like that.
This is a standard daily 200 amp BMS where we've changed the leads over. So normally, there was one I could show you. Normally the leads are the other way around, and that means that it can't sit in there because the balance leads would hit the bottom. So we actually turn these leads around and we put the balance leads on the top.
Okay, that's the BMS mounted. Do you want to drop it into the case before?
Yeah, let's drop it into the case.
Okay. Put that.
If you want to grab the case, we can drop it in together.
Yeah.
If you take the wood on that side.
Okay. Very snug fit. We just turn this up quickly and then people will be able to see. That's what it looks like in there. So obviously we'll put bus bars across there, yeah, there and there, and that main positive will come off here. We'll run a wire from here around to the positive terminal here. This will connect to the negative terminal there, and then obviously we'll now wire in all of the balance leads. Where are the balance leads? Here. Okay. Do you want to put the bus bars on? That's ready here. So this is what the balance leads look like when they come from DALI in this BMS. So they're just a basic wire, and so what we'll always do is just strip the insulation off the wire and then put some lugs on that are sized correctly for the wire and the terminals on the battery. So these battery cells have a 6mm terminal on the top of them. So I will be putting one of these guys onto each of these cables. And I really like these particular connectors because they have heat shrink built in on the insulation, as opposed to the sort of traditional ones where there's no heat shrink. So I really like working with these. Make sure they're on the right size. Yeah. What are you looking for?
That's there. Can actually put down the various negative ones.
actually see if we can get something underneath here so we can turn it so you guys can see a bit easier.
Or put it over here. This side. Okay.
Alright, stable enough?
Yep.
Oops.
I put my specs on so that I can protect my eyes. Just in the 1 in a million chance that you short something and a bit of hot metal goes flying up. You don't want to lose your eye over that.
Okay, so that's all the balance leads, the lug connectors on there. Just doing a bit of a tug test to make sure they're all good. So I'm going to use the heat shrink gun to heat up all the heat shrink.
We're going to take this out to get the these cords back on.
Get what in?
These.
Yeah,
Have the switch off to one side. We use this to turn the battery on once it's all put together. The BMS needs to be turned on.
You also need to drill a hole in the lid for the BMS, for the Bluetooth.
Yeah.
So that's the balance leads all sorted there. There you go. Looking good. We just realized that we didn't connect the Bluetooth and temperature probe onto the BMS, so we're going to have to pull this out to get those on there.
Let me just drop some things down and I'll pick up on the bus bars. It'll be okay. Move it. Just lift up and drop it behind. It's hitting this ledge here, so
Okay.
let me
Slide that over. And then the Bluetooth goes into, we spin this round, I'll show you guys quickly, on the side of the BMS here. Can I put that in? It says UART, that's where the Bluetooth module goes.
just need my flat blade screwdriver to push it in properly. Okay, so that's on. And you need the
And
temperature
the
sensor.
temperature sensor goes
That's in
into,
the same one.
oh, it's on the same side, yeah, it is.
Same side.
Right. Just above the Bluetooth, so where it says
NTC.
NTC, and it can only go one way. There you go. We'll normally just
Let's
put that over the top
we'll put it over here so that we can actually measure the temperature of the BMS when we do the high capacity test.
there. Yeah. And then the other thing that we put into some of these batteries as well is, especially on this particular version of the Daily BMS, the 200 amp, because it doesn't have the on switch on the Bluetooth module. So we just put a very simple on switch like that, which has the right plug to go into the little port just next to monitor. So on the 200 amp Daily BMS, it's the little port that's just to the side of monitor. There we go. And so we'll just wrap that over the top, and then we'll tidy things up in the case once we get it back in the case.
Okay, ready.
Okay. Just tilt it forward so people can see. Hopefully you can see. Probably got a little bit more actually. Yeah, there you go.
There we are.
Alright, so one of the things that we are going to need to do is to drill a hole through the lid to pass the Bluetooth module through, so that the Bluetooth module is outside, just because it probably won't work well enough from inside the case here. But before we do that, we're going to connect up the balance leads. So obviously these all go in sequence, so we start off with the negative, goes onto there. Yeah.
Try very hard not to drop the nuts, because they fall in there, then you never get them out.
Right, and then the first positive, so we always just go in the right order from the plug here, make sure that we get them in sequence.
We always put a little washer on, because when these nuts tighten, they twist the leads around if you don't use a washer.
And it's also recommended to connect up all of these wires onto your terminals before you actually plug the balance leads into your BMS. So we're going to use this red cable here to make the cable that goes from that terminal to the main terminal on the top of the battery. So we take this probably roughly that length,
Yeah,
because we've got a bit of room to play in here. If you ever work a lot with these sort of large gauge wires, so this is 1/0 or 50mm squared, I would definitely recommend getting a wire cutter, something along like this sort of lines, which is like a ratchet wire cutter, and it makes it so much easier to cut these. Before I learned about this, I was using like heavy duty side cutters or even a hacksaw, that sort of thing. It ends up getting to be quite not a very fun experience trying to cut these sort of wires with those. I do have a proper wire stripper, but I always just go back to the old-fashioned penknife. Can you get me some terminals up there, please? Some lugs. Should be some
50 by 6.
okay.
Need to
another one.
I can't find one.
Okay. So I'm using a hydraulic, just a hand crimping tool here. So I'll usually crimp it on the table like that until I get reasonable contact, and then it's holding the wire in, and then I can go to crimp it properly until it won't go anymore. And with these lugs, there's actually enough space to crimp twice on the shaft of the lug, so get a good connection on that. Another lug there. Cool. It's an 8, eh?
Yeah, there are no more 6s.
I might have a 6. Let me have a look.
Try and get the right lug size. This is an 8mm, 50 by 8. And on the top of the terminals, we'll be attaching, they have a 6mm hole here. We can of course drill this out, put an M8 on here. One of the things I like about this is the top has these little covers that go right over everything to stop it from shorting, well, easily shorting. And they have these little plastic nuts that hold it in place.
So let's go down like that.
This heat shrink and put on. Yeah.
Yeah, just. Should go on. Any bigger heat shrink?
Yeah, it's going on, I think. Yeah, it's just struggling to go on.
How's that?
It's kind of turned over, but yeah, it's good.
It's a bigger one. So that's what.
We always put heat shrink, just holds it all in place. Looks neater.
Okay. Now we can put. Now the trick is to not let anything short.
Need the balance lead
on there. I'll hold that positive if you want to.
Okay. There we go. Right, we got a torque wrench.
Yeah.
The supplier says that these can be torqued down to 10 Newton meters, but that is a lot of pressure on a stainless steel 6mm stud. We have done it to a few batteries where it was required for very, very high current. But normally we go for about 7 or 8 Newton meters, and that's pretty good. Our tests have shown that they don't heat up.
Okay.
Holding on the positive, you should really tape it to keep it all safe.
Okay. 8 Newton meters. Okay, now we can plug the balance leads in. So they just go into the back of the BMS. As we mentioned, we've turned the cable, the BMS around, so it's easy to get to where the balance leads belong here. And then we'll just tidy this up with a couple of cable ties.
So I've loaded the app, which is not showing anything yet because we haven't actually turned the BMS on. So before we actually connect up onto the lid, that we're going to actually test the BMS, make sure we'll test the whole rig, make sure it's working correctly. So at this stage, if you were to measure across this negative from the BMS and this positive off that cell, off the main positive here, you'd get about 3 volts, 2 or 3 volts varying, which means that the BMS is not actually turned on yet. It's safer to connect everything up at that voltage than to connect it up at the 12 volts. But it's always a handy thing to actually test it. So what we'll do is we'll press the switch, test this out, and then unplug the balance leads again while we connect everything up. Got a multimeter. Let's test. We should have about 2 or 3 volts going across.
Yeah. If you hold that onto the positive,
Okay.
and we'll show you guys here. So we put that on the negative, and there we have 3.18. So you push the button, then the BMS turns on, and we have 13.6. There we go.
Yeah, and it's on the, it's showing on the app as well. So that is good. let's disconnect the balance leads to turn it off. Put the balance leads back on.
Okay.
Now we can connect the lid.
Yeah, we just need to drill a hole to
Yeah.
be able to get the Bluetooth through it.
Positive is quite safe, it can't touch anything there. Right, if we look at the dongle, this is on the one side is a connector that goes into the DALI specifically, but on the other side is a micro USB. That's big enough.
10 more. Should be able to squeeze it through.
Let's try. If not, we can make it bigger.
We're going to put it opposite side to the terminals.
Yeah.
Okay. About there.
Yeah.
Middle.
Yeah.
About there.
Yeah. Try it from the top now.
Okay. We will obviously get a grommet to protect the cable that goes through there, but just for testing purposes, we'll leave it like that for now. See if we can get this plugged through there. Not quite.
You got a file?
I don't. Just work it with. More.
It should go through really easy now. Yep, and it does. So let's just plug this in and then I'll just keep it there.
Yep.
Okay. Now we can go for the main terminals.
Okay. Some washers.
Probably going to want to have this thing.
Hold it this way for now. Connect the positive so it's safe. How are we going to do that? Like that probably. There'd be enough space in that case for the cable to make that turn. Just turn the case up like that. Just find your hand here so you can get it.
going to have to turn like this.
That's not ideal. And wash on this side. Let's get this. Let's these bolts to this bolt to that hold the case. We're making progress with connecting this positive terminal here. Just
hold on, this has gotten around that for some reason.
Okay, yeah, let's just tighten this and sort that out.
This needs to be in. Hold, don't tighten it yet. It needs to be in like that. Yeah.
Okay. That's the positive. Let's move this Bluetooth.
Right, main positive, hold on. We've got a bit of a problem. We need to move this around.
Need to move what around, sorry?
This is not going to go. This is at its furthest limit, so this positive needs to come straight out there, not go around the corner. This needs to
straight out that way.
Yeah, it needs to come straight out where the balance lead is, basically. This balance lead needs to come over a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
The balance lead, right? Straighten it out.
Okay. Is that going to go? Yeah, that's going to close.
Okay, and this one. Will it actually close if that's like that? I'm not sure. Let's do it like this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
Do you want one of these nuts? It's got the flange.
Got them here.
Okay, cool.
Okay. And just pull it down that way. truth. Is it going to close?
Yep.
The answer is yes.
So let's turn it on first.
It is. So the Bluetooth will then obviously be stuck on like that. We'll just get one of those round 3M sticky things. Put a grommet in there to protect the cable in the hole. So if we reach in here and find our on switch, is over here. Turn that on, and then check our voltage on these two terminals here on the top. We should have 13.1 volts, which is what we would expect. So that's the battery on. These cells have not been top balanced, so we're going to top balance them, but we just wanted to demonstrate kind of what it takes to build out a battery like this. And then obviously there'll be bolts that go in all the way around to hold this thing down. And yeah, on the whole I'm pretty stoked with how it's turned out. It's a nice looking battery, solid. The cells have been clamped using plywood and threaded bar, so it's a really good way of holding the cells together and clamping them, securing them. And yeah, that's a great battery. It's really nice. I like it a lot.
Yeah, should be good.
Yeah, so that's a 280 amp hour battery with a 200 amp BMS in something this sort of size. If you think about it,
With Bluetooth connectivity.
with Bluetooth as well, yeah. So if you were to build out if you were to get the same capacity from lead acid, you'd be talking about 4, maybe 5 batteries, not far off this size, a little bit shorter and narrow, but same sort of length. So it's really good value for money as well. And all in the components for all of this is probably about the same as what you'd pay for about 5 lead acid batteries. So when people say that lithium is expensive, when you look at it, it's actually not, when you build these out yourself like this. So yeah, that's really good. I'm chuffed with that. So yeah, I think we'll end it there. Thank you for tuning in, everybody, and watching the live here. Appreciate your support. And if you have any questions or comments or things you'd like us to try or anything like that, let us know. Drop us a DM or comment on our videos on TikTok, and same on YouTube. Drop us a comment on any of the videos. We'd love to hear from you. And yeah, we'll be putting out more videos about this battery, because we're going to be running some tests as well. So just like we did with that battery, where we did a capacity test to see whether the BMS would overheat and all that sort of stuff, we're going to be doing the same with this. So we're going to do a high C test probably tomorrow here in this workshop, and then my dad's going to take them both back to his place, into the workshop there, and put them into his temperature box, and we're going to test them at a controlled temperature. So we'll probably do an initial test at 25 degrees, which is what the factories in China, the temperature that they test their cells at. And then one other thing that we're going to do with both of these, we're going to do a high temperature test. So we'll probably heat the box up to about 35 degrees Celsius, and we'll run a high C test in that sort of environment as well, just to see how the batteries perform, basically trying to simulate somebody that's using this sort of setup, these batteries, in an environment like southern Europe, like in Spain or something like that in the summer, where your van would get up to 35 or even more degrees. So if you were using like a coffee machine in that sort of temperature, would it actually cope with a high draw, so like 150 amp draw or something like that? So yeah, we'll keep you posted on those, but the videos will be on our YouTube channel, so jump into that if you want to. Got somebody asking, building my own battery, and I have a question regarding compression. You guys just taped the batteries together, is that enough, or should I use thread or not? Thread rod. So in this battery, I think you commented on the last video. I didn't get to your comment yet, but I will reply. So this battery that's behind us here on the workbench is the one that you were talking about, where we just taped it using this fiber tape. And so I haven't seen evidence of fiber tape deteriorating in these batteries, but obviously that could happen over the course of a few years. I mean, my preference would always be to use a threaded rod or threaded bar, whatever you call it, with some plywood on either end. That's what I've got in my van, and if you're not worried about the aesthetics, then that's definitely what I would go for. I mean, a battery like this with this box, once you've got it into your electrical locker or wherever you're putting your electrics, it's even if you put it together really well and labeled and everything, it's never a good looking thing anyway, having all these wires and a fuse block and all that sort of stuff and chargers and stuff. So I mean, I don't bother with that sort of stuff. So for me personally, I would use thread bar and plywood if I was building a battery, and that's what we've both got in our vans. We've got batteries, like our custom batteries on our website. That's basically what we run in our vans. But in this case here, with this metal case, you can it has enough space to fit plywood, so that's what we put in here today with the thread bar. But if you're going for a smaller case like the one we used in that video last week, there's not enough space to put thread bar unless you have smaller cells, so smaller capacity. But we wanted to push the boat out in terms of what capacity we could have in that case, and what BMS we could fit in. So that obviously had a 280 amp hour battery bank with a 150 amp BMS. And we just couldn't fit the thread bar, but that would always be my preference. So if you're not worried about what it looks like, then I would definitely go for thread bar with some plywood. But if you want to put it into a case, then you'd need to get a case like this to be able to put that in. But obviously, if you don't want to use thread bar and plywood, then I would definitely use some fiber tape and compress those cells just using fiber tape, or at least stop them from expanding, not necessarily compress them. That'll be way better than just having the cells sitting there without any form of compression. Anything you want to add?
No, I think you've nailed it. Yeah.
Okay.
The crazy thing is a nice, neat looking battery in a case is actually not my preference. My preference is something that is held together with thread bar that has a lot of ventilation.
Yeah, I mean, one of the challenges with a case like this is the ventilation. Obviously, when you can build a compression clamp with thread bar and plywood, you have a lot more room for ventilation and stuff like that. So that's my preference. But yeah, the fiber tape does work, but the thread bar and the plywood is a safer bet to compress the cells. Yeah. But yeah, thanks everyone. We're going to end it there. We've been going for about an hour now, so thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers. Get this thing on charge here.
Yep.
Do a test tomorrow.
Yep. Where is your charger?
The 14-volt charger is on the shelf over there, I think. Grab it. There's no point in screwing that thing down.
No. We know it'll screw down properly. That's just